Hello BookTube and welcome to Laura Lee's Bookshelf. I'm Laura Lee and today we're going to be talking about Mem Fox's Reading Magic. It is a phenomenal book. I gave it 5 books out of 5. It is a book about reading aloud with your kids. It is a must-have for every new parent. I truly believe from here on out I've decided everybody I know that gets pregnant will be getting a gift basket from me with a copy of Mem Fox's book and some great read aloud books to get them started when their baby arrives. So today this is really something that's going to light me up. It's not for everybody out there. So if you're not a parent, probably this isn't going to be the most exciting video for you. But I hope you'll stick around and check it out. If you like it, give me a thumbs up. Even better yet, subscribe to the channel so you can see the different things that I'll be talking about in the weeks to come as my channel begins to grow. I will be covering every type of book, literature, literacy, anything that deals with learning, growing as a reader, I will be talking about on my channel. But today is really focused for those parents out there. So let's talk a little bit about Mem's book. As a former elementary school teacher, it is so great to read. I wish, and as a mother, it's so interesting how even as a teacher, knowing what kids need to grow as readers, it's really easy to get caught up in the wrong stuff. And I think in our society, we often get caught up in the wrong stuff. Not just as parents, but as a teacher. I was fortunate enough that when I was being trained as a teacher, that it was in the height of the whole language movement. So I am a big proponent in whole language. And really, basically, for those of you that don't know what whole language is, it's really, today I think they call it balanced literacy. It's really about attacking reading from all different angles and not just focusing on one. And it's really easy in education, if you have had any involvement in education, that I call it the education pendulum. And as time goes, for some reason we can't, as educators, just end up in the middle. We end up, when it comes to teaching, we go to extremes of, oh, we need to focus on phonics, this is what we need, this is the key to everything. Well, no one thing is the key to everything. And then we realize that's not quite working, and then we swing back to the other side. There should be no phonics. That's incorrect. There should be lots of reading and lots of different ways to come at it because kids need to learn in different ways. Enough of that preaching though, let's get on to Mem's book. The most important thing I want to share with you is the importance that you start reading aloud to your child the day they come home. I know that I used to read to my son before he was born. I was a teacher and I was reading things, so I did read to him a lot. When my daughter came around, I read to her a lot and my son together. There are things I now know and I look back, and after this refreshing reread of Mem's book, that, oh gosh, I should have done that differently. Well, you're always going to feel that way as a parent, but I'm here to kind of give you a few helpful tips and give you some suggestions about things to start reading. Obviously, when your baby first comes home, it's really more about the emotional connection of that snuggle time, and that's one thing that Mem really gets right in her book, is the importance of that at-home reading. And there's tons of scientific evidence that backs it up, the importance of reading every day with your child. But it's beyond just the educational aspects and the part of it that helps your child to be a better learner and to grow, but it's the connection between you and your child, the social, the emotional. There's so much that comes out of reading. And I can't stress it enough. You need to start from the beginning, and it doesn't need to be business-like, school-like. I know as a teacher, one of daily homework is to read for 15 minutes, that kind of thing. And it's important that we do that as parents and that teachers recommend for parents to do that. But it's really important when your child is young to really make that about fun, not about work. And it's hard to do because we have really busy lives, and a lot of times we're tired and we just need to get that 10 minutes in and get it done. And that's not what it's about, though. It's not about the 10 minutes of just plowing through it. It's about the 10 minutes of the bonding and sharing language and literacy and modeling reading. And when you first bring your child home, the best things you can read are predictable books that they can kind of start anticipating what's going to come. I have a bunch of books out here that were my kids' favorite. This book was their very favorite. You can see, my kids are in their 20s now. It has a bite out of it from the dog. It is well loved, well worn, and it's Chicka Chicka ABC. And it has the most lovely rhyme and rhythm to it. And I just want to read a little bit. My kids loved this book. Chicka chicka boom boom, will there be enough room, is the stanza that keeps being repeated. Anything with a repeating message, and especially a rhythm, and you need to read it with enthusiasm and with a rhythm. Mr. Brown can moo, can you? Anything Dr. Seuss is great as an early reader. And you notice these are board books, so they can go through anything. A couple other board books, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Eric Carle is always wonderful, and the caterpillar eating his way through the fruit throughout the day. My son, one of his very favorite books was The Grouchy Ladybug by Eric Carle. This is a great read aloud. Again, like his other, like Very Hungry Caterpillar, but it has time in it. I read this book from the time my kids were tiny to second grade. I used to read it to my second graders because we were working on time in second grade as a math skill, and it has time in it. But there's this very grouchy ladybug, and I would do a funny, very grouchy voice for it, and he just loved it. I read this book over and over again. If You Give a Mouse a Cookie series, and Laura Numeroff has tons of books in this series with different animals, but it's all very predictable. If you give a mouse a cookie, he's gonna ask for a glass of milk. If you give him the milk, he'll probably ask you for a straw, and it has the pictures to go with it. This is a great read aloud. Another Dr. Seuss. One fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. Anything with rhyming. These are great areas to start. The one thing I want to remind parents to make sure you do, and it's really easy to miss, poetry. Poetry has that rhythm to it, and it doesn't have to be stuffy old what you think of as poetry. Shel Silverstein's series of books, I have like 3 more up there on my shelf, but this was his first, Where the Sidewalk Ends, and they're fun, hilarious poems that the kids will get a kick out of. My kids loved these, both my students and my children at home. There's other treasury. I have this treasury of poetry and a children's garden of verses. All of these offer that rhythmic language, which gets children excited and interested. Also, don't forget your fairy tales. And let's say this. Now, Mem does discuss this in the book, and I agree with her. A lot of people shy away from fairy tales because some of them are pretty gruesome and pretty scary. And she says, don't sugarcoat it. Read the original fairy tales. And if your child is snuggled up with you, feeling safe in this loving environment, they're going to be fine, and you can talk about it. It's also a great door to talk about emotions and good and bad, and things work out. So I wouldn't shy away from fairy tales. I have some great fairy tales. This one, I believe, is from when I was, Oh, actually, it was from my son, from my grandmother, his great-grandmother. I hope you and Bella will enjoy reading these fairy tales. Love you, Meemaw. Oh, I love my Meemaw. But that was great. I have noticed as I've started going through my books, there's a lot of sweet little notes in there from my family to my children. But lots of nursery rhymes, Grimm's fairy tales. Rhymes are always wonderful. The other thing I want to say is you don't stop reading aloud when your child starts school. And I think that's where we run into a lot of that. You can get to a place where you're still reading to them. It's a nice break. Some days they read to you. Some days you read back and forth. Some fun books for that young first, second grade age. I don't know if you're familiar with Mercy Watson. She's a great pig and she's hilarious. All the Amelia Bedelia books. These are wonderful for first, second graders to read with mom and dad at night and have a little laugh. I did grab this one because this was a book, especially because October is coming up, Halloween. It's called Piggy Pie, and it is hilarious. I read it every year out loud to my class because it's just so funny, and they will love it. And you'll find what your kids are into, what they love. There's books about family, about love, books about feelings. This is one of the things, when I was doing some tutoring after I left the classroom and I was working with kids that maybe were having some struggles with emotions and expressing themselves. Books are a great window and a great starting point to talk to your kids about different emotions, and it lets them feel not so alone, and it also starts the conversation so they'll feel safer to talk to you about what they're feeling and what they're going through. I don't know if you're familiar with Kevin Henkes, but he writes the most wonderful stories about emotions and feelings and dealing with a lot of them happen in school. Chrysanthemum is getting teased about her name. Lily's plastic purse, she's so excited about school and so excited about show and tell. She's struggling to keep focused until show and tell time, and she has a little misstep and she's got to deal with that. It's a great story about school and waiting. Wimberly Worried. I read this to my class every year. Fabulous book about poor Wimberly. She worries about everything. And a lot of kids, I think, in today's world, especially with all of the lockdowns and all of that, Wimberly Worried would be a great book to start that conversation about anxiety and being anxious and nervous and creating worries in your head. Wonderful recommendation. The Kissing Hand. It is the book to start every school year with, even when your kids get older. It's a wonderful book about a little raccoon that's going to school for the first time and being a little apprehensive about that. There's lots of books about school and emotions. Books about showing kids different aspects. Debbie Allen's Dancing in the Wings, one of my favorite books. Really about perseverance and going for your dreams. Tar Beach was a book I read every year to my class because I taught in Tennessee, and this book takes place in New York in an apartment building. Most of my kids didn't have a window into that type of lifestyle. So we talked a lot about how books can show us how other people live, and we can get to know them, how we're alike, how we're different, and appreciate other people and their culture and the way they do things. Also, some fun things when you have some troubles. This is really a fun book. The Recess Queen, and I absolutely love this. I had to do it when I taught first and second grade. I had to read it at least once, sometimes twice, to kind of get some conversation started about things that were going on the recess, during the recess time. So it is another fun read, and this lovely girl moves to town, and they think she's going to follow all the rules and do exactly what Mean Jean tells her to, and she says, oh no, I'm going to do what I want to do. It's a great book. Rainbow Fish, another wonderful book, talking about being okay with who you are and also being humble and sharing. All great picture books. I don't want to leave, I know this one's going on a little bit longer, until I talk a little bit about chapter books and the importance of reading with your kids when they get a little bit older, and how much they love listening to stories that are either on their reading level or a little bit higher. And don't get caught up in the reading level hype. We can have another discussion about that on another day. Been there, done that. on both sides. As a parent, as a teacher, as a student, reading levels are a pain. We'll talk about that another day. But I picked 3 of my favorite read alouds that I read every year to my class of 2nd graders. And I read them at the same time every year, and I looked forward to it. At Christmas, every year I read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's a little higher level, but they love it. They eat it up. And this is one that if you're reading at home with your child, you can read a paragraph, stop and talk about it. Let them try, but help them out when they stumble over a word. Don't make them sit and struggle and sound out words. Give it to them if they're struggling. It's more about the relationship and them learning to love to read than them being able to phonetically sound out a word. That takes place somewhere else. That's for the classroom. That's not for at home. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, you can see how loved this book is. Every year in February for Valentine's Day, I read this out, and then our Valentine's Day party was always a Willy Wonka party. It was fantastic. Loved it. And this one you may not have ever heard of, and it's really one of my favorites. It was written by Julie Edwards, and it's called The Last of the Really Great Wang Doodles. It is a fantasy about these siblings. It's kind of on the same vein of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. These kids coming together, and I haven't read it in years. This makes me want to read it. Ben, Tom, and Lindy Porter have never heard of a Wang Doodle until they met the brilliant Professor Savant at the zoo. He tells them all about the wise and magical creatures who disappeared to another land because people stopped believing in them. And when the professor invites them on a quest to find the last of the really great Wang Doodles, they can't resist. The way to Wang Doodle Land isn't easy. The children must learn to see things in a completely different way. When at last they succeed, they encounter wondrous creatures like the Whifflebird, the Swamp Gaboons, and the high behind Splinter Cat. But it seems they'll never find the elusive Wang Doodle, especially since the oily Proc, the sinister prime minister of Wang Doodle Land, is determined to stop them in any way he can. It's a great book. So great. I hope you picked some of these up. I hope I was helpful. I hope you've got some suggestions of books to add to your home collection to read with your little reader or big reader. And if you have any questions, if you need more suggestions, if you want to talk more about fostering literacy at home and making it a loving, wonderful environment, let me know. Please comment below. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time. Bye.